Hey, happy Wednesday, everybody. We're going to get back to baseball economics once again today. As we left off yesterday, we just finished up with the first activity. As we left, I'd asked you to answer two questions. We made our charts. We had everything laid out. And the first question I asked for you had to do you see any relationship between how much money you spend, our team spends, and how many games they win? And many of you split your answer on this. Sometimes you say yes, sometimes you no. The one thing I'd like to point out to you here we have all the teams sorted by how much money they spent per win. As we look over here, the teams that won the most, if we change our sort, let's change the sort, and we go ahead, I'm going to include everything here, excuse me, sorry. We'll include E, column E too. If we change our sort, custom sort, and sort by column B, the number of wins, we'll take a look at the teams that won the most. The Yankees, they spent a lot. Remember, the average down here is this $3.2 million. So one, two, three, four, five. The top five teams all spent above average. One team did not. Another team over, so now we're at two teams here that did not spend. Three teams, four teams, five teams. So in your top 12 or so, you did have five teams that didn't spend a lot of money. So you could make the argument and said, no, Mr. Wick, you don't have to spend a lot of money to win games. But if I own a baseball team, I'm seeing, well, the top teams, they did spend a lot of money. So your argument really could have gone either way. You don't have to spend a lot of money to be competitive, but you do have to spend if you want to win a championship. That appears to be the message, and that translates to all sorts of sports. Football does not, because they have a salary cap. Each team is only allowed to spend so much. In baseball, they can spend what they want. Basketball, they also have different rules where they can spend more. Look at the Miami Heat, who have won championships. They have a very high payroll. So overall, the answer I guess I would look at is you don't have to spend a lot of money to win, but it doesn't hurt. Now let's go back to where we were a second ago here and look at the second question, which said, who is the most efficient and least efficient teams? Well, to determine that, remember we talked about you have 162 games in a season. So if you have to win half your games to be somewhat good, you have to win 81 games. Well, here you have the New York Yankees. They spent the most per player per win. That's quite a bit of money. But they also won the most games. I wouldn't call them inefficient. I'd call them rich, but I wouldn't call them inefficient. The New York Mets, however, that year, they spent the second most and only won 70 games. I would call that very inefficient. They didn't make the playoffs. They spent a lot of money. Also that year, the Mets did have a lot of injuries as well, so they had a lot of players taking money, not playing. But as far as the least efficient teams, I would get down here. I'd look for teams that didn't win many games but yet paid a lot of money. I might come down. Someone had mentioned the Cleveland Indians were inefficient. I would agree with that. The Baltimore Orioles, would I call them inefficient because they only won 64 games? Well, they were also under the league average, so I don't think I'd call them inefficient. I think I like the idea of the Mets being inefficient, and if you told me again um, the White Sox is inefficient and the Indians are inefficient, those teams are probably the ones I'd look most at as being inefficient. As far as the most efficient, well, let's go down here. Again, the least amount of money spent per win. By far, the Florida Marlins got a lot. They won well over half their games with very little payroll. The Twins were very good. Any teams down here, the 87, 84, 87, probably not the Padres, but your Rangers, the Devil Rays, the Twins, and the Florida Marlins, they were all very efficient. So all those answers would have worked, and that got us through yesterday's lesson. So we can close the book on yesterday now. Today, what I want to look at is activity 2. All we did yesterday was talk about the money the teams are spending on players. The first question I have, and we're going to stop the video after this question, or you can answer with a neighbor nearby, and we'll talk about it in class, is beyond salaries, what other things are ball teams paying out for? What are the other costs, the operating costs to run a baseball team? What are some of those things? This time we'll stop the video have a short discussion on that in class. All right, now that you've had that decision, thank you very much. We have to look at how teams make money. They have to pay off all those things you just talked about. They have to pay the salaries, they have to pay for the facility, they have to pay the workers at the facility, the parking lot attendants. They have to bring the food in, pay for the food they're going to sell. They have to pay for the merchandise they sell. They have to pay for the workers who sell the merchandise. They have to pay for the people who are out there scouting players. All those things. Did a great job with that in class. But how do teams make money? What do they make money on? Uh, the most obvious answer is, hey, they sell tickets to games. But I know as I watch ball games on TV, the stands aren't always full. So how are teams, other than selling tickets, making money? Once again, have a short discussion with someone sitting next to you. Then we'll bring it back to class and have that conversation. All right. Thanks. Good job again with that. So today, as we look at activity 2, there are 7 questions that you need to answer. And all those questions, they come with how teams are doing making money or losing money. We'll do some of this together in class right now, but these 7 questions, you'll be able to turn into me. We'll finish them tomorrow in class. But in order to get there, I want to take you to a page on Forbes.com, which talks about the baseball teams from 2010. And here we go. The business of baseball. What I'd like you to do is sort the list. Just go ahead and sort by rank for now. And you'll get this chart that will come up. And it ranks all the teams and how much they're worth. Like right now, under current value, and this again is 2010, under current value, the New York Yankees were $1.6 billion, by far the wealthiest team out there. Their value, if you wanted to buy them, it would take. The Red Sox, $870 million, and you work your way down. And you know me, I'm going to work off my beloved Brewers. The Brewers were worth $351 million back then. The next column will tell you how much did that change in the last year. Now remember, this was a great time of almost a depression. We were losing money in our society. Things weren't going so well. So it only stands to claim that baseball teams would lose money, but as you look, the Yankees, their value went up. The Red Sox up. The Mets did go down, but almost every team was going up in value. Very few teams were not going up in value. And this tells you how much percentage did they go up in value. Again, going back to the Brewers, look at that. The Brewers went up 1%. Next column over is the debt value, and that is how much debt did they actually have that was going against them? How much did they actually owe out there? Over the next column is revenues. What were they bringing in? Let's sort by the revenues. The teams that brought in the most money, once again, surprise, there's the Yankees. These are the teams that all the items we talked about in our conversation about how else they bring money in, these are the teams that were doing well. The Brewers, well, they were down here making $171 million bringing that in. And last but not least, the last column is the operating income. That's kind of like the cash on hand. At the end of the day or being a school day, hey, Dad, can I have $10 for lunch today? If Dad has the $10 in his wallet and gives it to you, that was his operating income. All right? These are the things that they can dig into their pockets and do something right now with. And once again, we get to the Milwaukee Brewers, and they were at $10.2 million they could do things with. Real quickly, you can also click on each of these teams, and you can get in to see where they're at. All those questions right there. It tells you that year the gate receipts, the tickets that we talked about. They brought in $62 million in tickets. Ken Maka is obviously no longer the manager. Some of the top sponsors for the Brewers: Pepsi, United States Cellular, Clements, Associated Bank. Naming rights that belongs to Miller Park. We do that, Fox Sports Network. But again, it just kind of gives you a little breakdown of the business if you want to take a look at a couple teams as you go through. All right, that said, your job today is to get back in, answer these 7 questions now, and you can work with a partner again. Do not turn them in today. We'll get these tomorrow from you, so you have time to work tonight. If you didn't get yesterday's questions into me yet, please do that. The ones that we just went over to being in class today, they are now in the grade book. Other than that, get after these 7 questions. If you can answer this down here, I'll give you a little bonus. Um, why would you hang on to your team if the team is losing money? It's a great question. If you can answer that for tomorrow, like I say, I'll give you a little bonus on your sheet. All right, so there it is for today. Tomorrow we'll get into activity 3. If by some chance you get that far along, you can look at activity 3. Mr. Sulik and I are looking at possibly making some tweaks and changes on that one. But get those 7 questions answered if you can today in class. Have a great day. Hopefully the sunshine will come out, and hopefully the Brewers sweep the Cards today. Have a great one.